You get to role play tonight. Be the counsel. I'm going to give my little speech. So here goes nothing. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, my name is Wade Johnson. I've been a resident here in Huntington Beach for the past 11 years. I come before you tonight to see if we can't change the ordinance as it pertains to backyard beekeeping. As it stands today, the beekeeper's hive needs to be 200 feet away from the beekeeper's home. Now, as fellow residents, I'm sure you're well aware that 200 feet away from anything really doesn't exist here in Huntington Beach. We're also well aware that bees play a critical part to our environment. They pollinate, that help beautify, as well as feed our wonderful city. Now, having kept bees many, many years ago, I can tell you that the one and major common concern is bee stings. What if I get stung? What if my kids get stung? Do keep in mind that this is a defense mechanism. If you're a beekeeper from now and then, yeah, you're going to get stung. You are doing your beekeeping thing. You put your hands in the box. From time to time, it happens. As far as your friends, neighbors, pets are concerned, this really should be similar to something like a nut allergy, where the solution isn't to place ourselves inside of a bubble, but rather expose ourselves to the risk. Now, I know this might sound scary. However, being stung by a European honeybee, these are a docile species. You're much more likely to get stung by a feral or a wild bee. This is a defense mechanism, mind you. So unless you're eating honey bread while bathed in, say, some flower perfume while standing over a hive, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get stung. Now, working together, I believe it's possible to put some smart ordinance around beekeeping in our city. First, let's do away with this 200-foot limitation. Cities such as New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, even as close as Long Beach, have done so with great success. Next is that we could limit the number of hives. Of course, we don't want a commercial apiary set in backyards. Totally understand that. And make sure that if you are going to have a hive, make sure that you have a water source that's close by so that the bees can drink. Now, other cities have implemented such tactics around their ordinance with great success. I only have 3 minutes tonight. So once again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out now. Now, this is your chance to put some comments down below. Here are some of the questions that I am most likely to receive. What about those people that are allergic? There are about 3% of people that are severely allergic to bee stings. Huntington Beach having a population of about 200,000, that puts it at roughly 6,000 people. Now, out of those 6,000 people, what are the chances that you might be living next to a hive? Not really likely. The studies that I've read, this doesn't just pertain to bee stings. This also pertains to all types of stings. So if you're one of these unfortunate types that do go into anaphylaxis, that might actually die from a sting, you better be carrying around your EpiPen because you are severely allergic. You need to prepare yourself for a worst case scenario, figure out some way that you want or need to be treated. And lastly, really, if you are severely allergic and you know that you're severely allergic, there are treatments available that if you're really that serious about it, you can wean yourself off of it. What about swarms? Now, to squelch any misconceptions about a swarm, this is when a hive splits off and goes swarms off. Maybe you've seen it. It's quite an awesome sight. But that hive, or that part of the hive, is when the bees are most vulnerable. They're exposed, they're out in the open, and they're least likely to pick a fight. They don't want that. They're looking for a new home. That's what they're doing. Now, what I am proposing tonight is for the hobbyist beekeeper. These are people that have gone through the process, hopefully the classes, to obtain a hive, to obtain a permit, and they want to keep bees as a hobby. There are many classes and workshops available online. There are the two closest associations that I'm familiar with, one being in Long Beach, the other in Costa Mesa. Right there, they offer at least monthly classes and seminars when it comes to the ins and outs of backyard beekeeping. Now, Long Beach has done something very, very unique, or they have done something very interesting when it comes to the Backyard Beekeeping Association, which is they've set up a little sanctuary for bees for unwanted hives or swarms to be placed at. They also have a bee removal service that's part of their association. So if you do happen to come across a swarm, they get up in your attic, your garage, whatever, that you can call them, and they work on a don't exterminate, relocate type of mentality where they can be placed into this bee sanctuary, which sits on one of their green belts, and hopefully they can find a new home for that beehive. Very interesting, great solution for Long Beach. What about Africanized bees? Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you that Africanized bees are real, but the fear around them is not. The beekeeper hosts what's called a European honeybee. These are of a docile bee species. If we properly maintain a beehive, the chances of it becoming Africanized are very minimal, slim, nil. It's not going to happen. Now, let me also state that just because you have a hive doesn't mean that you're going to be a successful beekeeper. Beekeepers have to, contend with things like rodents, varroa mite. Then there's all sorts of diseases out there that we have to compensate for, not to mention our overzealous neighbor with their arsenal of chemical weapons that kill all sorts of insects, including the bee. And then on top of everything else, you have the big box stores and the nurseries that sell chemical-laced plants that are laced with neonicotinoids that are also harmful for bees. What I am proposing is for the hobbyist beekeeper, we're able and willing to deal with those type of external factors and want to help the environment wherever we can. Personally, I have expressed my concern to the proprietors who sell these chemical-laced plants as well as the chemicals, and I vote with my dollar. I'm also here tonight to try to express my concerns and to change your mind as well. Bees now, but what's next? Chickens, goats, cows? We live in an urban environment. We're not rural. Now this is a straw man argument. The biggest difference between a cow and a beehive is size. I don't need a trailer. I don't need pasture for grazing. I mean, come on. That's a false argument. Now, as far as chickens are concerned, here in Huntington Beach, we are allowed to have chickens. I think there's similar limitations with 25 feet being away from the house and some other things that I'm unaware of. I'm not a chicken guy, but maybe somebody on the council can tell me how many people in Huntington Beach actually have chickens. I've never seen one. And are they a problem? Also, this whole 25 feet away, it's an arbitrary line in the sand. Why 25 feet? Again, 25 feet in Huntington Beach, that's going to be pretty hard to obtain pretty much anywhere in the city as well. So I can't speak for the chicken people, but probably want to do away with that as well. Honeybees aren't native to North America, and by keeping them, you starve out the natural native species in the area. Yes, true that the European honeybee isn't native to the US. Neither are tomatoes, neither is the horse, and chances are neither are you. Now, that's not necessarily a jab, just where do you draw the line? If you're an advocate of the native bee population, you and I are on the same team. Our fight is with the mono-industrial agriculture system that we currently have in place. These are complex, very problematic systems where we can work together to solve that issue if you wish. And I'm happy to work with you on them. Now, advocates of bees, all bees, should be aware that we face the same toxic soup when it comes to the fungicides, the herbicides, the insecticides that are used by this monoculture industrial agriculture system that we currently have in place to support our food system. Now, our urban environments actually offer a much more broad diversity when it comes to native plants for the bees, not just honeybees, for natural native bees as well. Now, beekeepers that I know are stewards of bees, all bees, not just the honeybee. Now, working together, we can set up things like what are the best practices for a pollinator garden that support the native bee population. We want to be stewards of our ecology, and we have to learn to live with what's currently here, our bees, native, European honeybee, whatever it might be. Thank you for sticking around this long. If you would, please leave me some comments below, maybe some questions that I haven't thought of, or even how can I tighten up the current questions that I have. Been working on this, trying to get it more natural sounding and the flow and all of that. Still got a little bit of ways to go, but I'm not doing this tomorrow. So until next time, stay relaxed and keep on living.